It is Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 235 for January 9th, 2025. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be your moderator today, along with our stalwart co-hosts Jim Bowman and John Ziegler. And we have a special guest star today, Barbara Dill, who is the author of Multi-Axis Spindle Turning. Formats today is going to be a little different from usual. I'm not going to bother with announcements. The format is going to be Barbara's going to show us a PowerPoint and a conversation to refresh us on multi-axis spindle turning as she understands it and has discovered it. Then we're going to go to you all and invite you to show your work and bring your work for conversation about multi-axis turning. And when that runs down, if we run out, we're going to go back to more slides from Barbara. But I have a feeling that there's quite a few people here who have got work to show. We don't need you to show hands yet, but if you want to, you can. And I'm going to hand the floor over to Barbara now. Hello, Barbara. You ready to go? You got to unmute yourself. All right.
Hi. Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for this invitation. It's encouraged me to go through my slides and try to figure out how all of this work developed in my life, from not understanding it to getting an idea about a conceptual model, and then how my work developed through then. So I've enjoyed making that PowerPoint presentation. But what I thought we'd do today is I ask you we gave a link to the paper that I wrote that's a summary of this conceptual model, so that we'd all be on the same page. But what I thought we'd do now is I will share my screen and just do a few slides that go over that information. And then we can take a look at the work that you've brought in and you can describe it. And I'll help maybe in terms of the type of outcome, the type of axis, and all of that. Because one thing that I think is most important, in addition to having a systematic way to think about this very confusing way to turn wood, is that we now have a vocabulary to describe and to teach what's going on. So I think that's important. So let me share my screen. And I know, I got to get it started.
You got to do the other thing you did before.
Magic, there it is.
Perfect.
So just as a summary, it turns out after in the 1990s, I was fumbling around with randomly changing the axes and coming up with things, but I didn't know what they were. But most importantly, I didn't know what to do next. So I sort of stopped at the end of the 90s because I got frustrated. So back in 2006, I decided somebody has to figure out what all of these spindles have in common. And I was able to do it. It was a big surprise. But what I saw is there are only two ways that the new axis can be moved relative to that center axis. It's either going to be parallel or not parallel, called twisted, and parallel referencing that center axis. So this is all in reference to that center axis, or any line parallel to that center axis. And then it looked like there were only two results that could happen when you take a new axis and when you turn a new axis. It's either going to be arc type, which is the one on the left, and the profiles on each axis intersect, creating an arc if you were to dissect it, cut it through the middle, or you go all the way through the air or ghost wood to the new solid wood and create a circular type. They can look like other things, but these are two ways they can look. Now, the circular type, it does make a big difference where you put the axis, because if the axis is closer to the outside of the spindle, then the radius defines the amount of solid wood that you have. So you have very little solid wood, just like Jim, that camshaft that you have behind you, very little solid wood to connect the axes. But if you put the new axis in the center or in the center of the spindle or closer to the center, in the middle and closer to the center, then you have more solid wood to work with and you're more successful in the outcomes. Arc type, it really doesn't make a big difference where you put the axis. If it's closer to the outside of the spindle, then you just make a flatter arc when you're cutting into the wood. And if you put the axis in the middle, in the center, but let's say between the center and the outside, then the arc becomes more curved, and the closer to the center it is, the more curved the arc is. So it's just really a design element, but it's critical when you're turning circular type outcomes. And the other really important issue is a numbering system. Everybody who's tried this knows that it's very easy to get a brain cramp. So I developed a system that works for me. It's not the only system. You can use the alphabet, you can use colors, but my system is merely when you, can you see the arrow there?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
we
good.
can.
So when I set up a spindle, if I'm going to do parallel axes, I will put, these are separated by 120 degrees. I'll do 1 to 1, 2 to 2, and 3 to 3. And then if I'm turning parallel, of course, I go from 1, and the headstock end is always the lowest number in sequence. So if I'm doing a parallel thing, that's pretty easy to keep up with. It's 1 to 1, 2 to 2, and 3 to 3. But if I'm doing twisted, and here 4 axes separated at 90 degrees, I will go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then 4 to 1. So it's in sequence. So I'll always know when I look at a spindle that I did, I can look at it and I always know how that was turned. So these 4 elements can create families of spindles or section of spindles that have 2 things in common: the axis placement and the type of outcome. So the first quadrant is all parallel axes and arc type. Third quadrant, the parallel axes are on top. So the third quadrant is circular outcome and parallel. And underneath that, twisted and arc type and twisted and parallel. What happened when I started understanding this is that I would wake up and I would think, oh, I did that on 2 axes. What would happen if I did it on 3? What would happen if I did it on twisted axes? And then the obsession became an obsession for years. In fact, I think I'm still obsessed because I absolutely love this type of turning wood. The other important element in this information is that there are a set of variables that apply to each family, not just one quadrant, but all of them. And that is the shape and the size of the wood that you use can vary to make a very different design using the same turning that you did. The profile, and I define a profile simply as a bead, a cove, a V-cut, or a straight line, and the way they're combined, and the axis that you use. So under those broad categories are millions of variables that can be applied to every spindle in every quadrant. So here's just an image of those quadrants on the left. This is an image of parallel axes arc type. The next one is parallel twisted axes arc type. The third one here is parallel circular type. And the next one on the right is twisted circular type. So my last slide for now, two more. Why is this significant? Well, it took me for years to understand why I thought it was important. I couldn't articulate it. I sort of knew it, but it's taken me a long time to verbalize it. It's a system. I knew it was a systematic way or a structure to look at multi-axis work versus random axis changes and arbitrary cuts, which is what most of us have done when we're experimenting with this. It's a way to intentionally explore forms and to be able to repeat them. It's a way to share ideas and teach multi-axis turning. It's a vocabulary, which I think is really important. And as a side note, I would love to see any article written about multi-axis forms using this vocabulary so we can all understand the terminology and understand what somebody did. That's just my bias. And it's a way to create new forms rather than copying things that have been done before. Now that's important because in the 90s, it was a whole culture in the wood turning arena, which I'm familiar with, but probably every other art form and every other in medicine even, that what you develop is yours and nobody can copy it. And so it was hard for me to get my information published because it was not owned, it was owned by somebody else. But I developed this information just because I didn't like that culture. I thought that was a negative way to bring people into an exciting way to turn wood. So this article was published in 2013, and I think it's a fabulous article. And essentially what I get out of it is when you teach something, you give it away. It's not yours anymore. And there are very few signature pieces that this is a concept. Turning a hat is a concept. Multi-axis work is a concept. A natural edge bowl is a concept. It's not owned by anybody. So therefore, anybody can use these ideas. So that's what I wanted to do right now. And then let's stop the share.
All
And
right.
let's have what I
Let me ask you a
Oops.
couple of questions first, Barbara. What's your background that brought you to be able to analyze this way? What did you do before you became a woodturner?
I was a psychiatric nurse. I have a master's in psychiatric nursing. I always wanted to know how things worked. But other than that, my father was a musician and I was a trumpet player from grammar school. And I think music theory and just knowing how much time it takes to master an instrument, how much work it takes, really got me to be I can focus in on things, and I'm a systematic thinker. I can't memorize shit, but if I can understand it, then I got it. So that's probably what my background is.
So when did you start woodturning?
I started in 1990. Well, I was working in the ER here at VCU in Richmond in the 80s. We moved here from Boston and I saw, well, I'll give you, this is part of my earlier presentation, but actually I started carving wood when I still worked as a nurse. And then I quit in 1990 and went to Aramont and got a big lathe. But I'll show you that in a minute. What I'd like to do right now is see what your work is.
All right, let's go.
And let's look at it through these terms. And then I'd love to show you my PowerPoint presentation as well.
All right, let's go to the hands. Let's put hands up, anybody who's got work to show. I know George has. George is going to go to you first. I'm going to add a spotlight here. Yeah, what do you got, George?
Great, now talk about it.
This is just totally arbitrary. I just started turning and went at it.
Okay, can you say more about it? Because I can describe it for you if you would like.
Yeah, that if you can describe it.
It's circular type and it's twisted axes. So you might have had one axis on the top and many on the bottom, I don't know. But it is circular because you cut through the airwood and grab that solid wood. So that's a quadrant 4 turning. And that's a lot like the ones I started experimenting with, just randomly changing the axis and going for, going to the new axis. So thank you. That's
George,
very good too.
George, you had several other pieces the other day too. Have you got those with you?
Yeah. Here's the box.
Oh, that's great. Now, can you explain that?
That was turned on three axes, I guess.
Are
And
they
it's-
separated by 120 degrees?
Yeah, 3 axes, 120 degrees.
And is the twist 120 degrees from the top to the bottom? Did you go from 1 to 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Followed your example, basically.
Okay, and the good thing about that form is you can make the twist not 120 degrees. If you don't want it to be 120 degrees, you can number the top, separate it in 120 degrees, but have it different than the bottom. And I'll show you that in my slide point presentation. So that means with that type of turning, there's so many objects you can make using the shape and the size of the wood and the twist of the wood. And that's a
Totally
That's
limitless.
Yep.
What I was
Excuse me.
curious about is that is that a finished surface from the turning, or did you then have to do some carving and sanding?
No, I did a bit of sanding.
Bit of sanding, but it's not. You didn't have to carve that. I mean, those are nice, clean arises. The serpentine line down the form. Did you have to do anything to hold that line, or did that arise from the tools?
No, straight from the tool and then a bit of sanding.
Can we see the inside of that box? So it's round inside.
Yeah.
Got it.
Very
That's
good.
the piece. I like that box a lot. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, they're really nice boxes.
You had another piece as well, did you not?
Yeah. I've been busy. That's
Good.
this piece.
Ah, I saw that somehow. Oh, last week maybe. Yes.
Now tell us about that.
That's basically why it's hollow on the inside. Started with hollowing it. Then I glued a small piece in the hole, basically, to put in the chuck. And then I just twisted it in the chuck to the maximum I could to get the 3 points.
I think that
Good.
has a lot of possibilities. I haven't seen anything quite like that before.
Then I just drilled a small hole, then put my tailstock in there to keep it from flying away, and turned the flats.
That does have a lot of possibilities. Yes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do with it.
Thank
All right.
you.
I just
All right.
a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Experiment.
Thank you, George. Who else now? Bowman?
Yes. This was my first successful, with quotes around successful, turnings of a parallel axis. Would that be parallel axis circular? Is that right, Barbara?
That is right. Yes. And I bet the axes the new axes, the parallel axes were either were closer to the center than the outside of the spindle.
Yeah, and this one, credit for this idea goes to Jim Duxbury, because he had an article in what's the name of it later, in Woodturning, on doing something similar to this, and I go, okay, I'm going to try it. This is the third try. The first two shattered apart. Basically, I didn't choose the right kind of wood, so I grabbed some ambrosia and turned this one, and was pleased enough to say, okay, I'm not going to throw this one in the trash, and ended up putting a little walnut cap on it because I hadn't left enough space up there for a cap. So
Very good.
thank you. Yeah, it was very satisfying. And frankly, after trying to do twisted after that, I may decide to make this my type of off-center turning. The challenge here, as you might guess, is getting that chisel in and out without hitting the other sides, and making sure you stay to the line so you don't get gaps in it that aren't clean with each other, like there and there and there. But it was great satisfaction when I finished it. So
I
I
can
would.
see why you like that. It looks like the camshaft behind you, so I can see why you're attracted to that shape.
Yeah, it was a little bit, a little bit. Jim had, to his credit, he had a test tube down through that would show, but I tried one like that. Man, I was too heavy on my pressure, and it broke apart. Basically, I had bored it out first. I was tempted to bore this one out and put a test tube in it, but I didn't. So that was my fun. The other one is a three-sided turning I did.
Well, let's kill your share, Bowman. Let's get your share. If you're done with the share, let's kill that.
I'm done. I did a three-sided, and I got so frustrated with my attempts, I finally reached for some blanks I got via family from Jake Brubaker, the well-known turner here in Lancaster County. I said, well, he was a reverend in the church, and I'm going to engage the Almighty in making sure I can turn one. And luckily, I managed to turn it. I had to sand it some, and so my edges are not as crisp as I would like. I have a lot of learning to do on that, but yeah, it was kind of fun.
Let me just say that when I sand archetype pieces, I sand them off the lathe so I can keep those crisp lines. Yeah.
And that I left it on lathe but didn't turn it on. I took my orbital sander and tried to follow it. Well, at the top, I got over the edges a little. So a lot of learning to do, but it's fun. So
good. Thank you.
John Chalikian, what do you got?
let me unmute myself.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I did a, see if I can show this. This is just going down one side to create the leaning.
So that's a
leaning effect.
multi-axis piece as well.
Yeah, it's multi-axis. Right. There was I moved the tailstock point like 3 times.
Yeah.
Like every other level. And there was
So-
one at the top that I was all the way at the edge, and that kind of snapped off.
That happens sometimes. So that's in quadrant 4. It's a circular type twisted multi-axis turning. Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John,
And then
Thank you.
John, I have a question about that one. Did you use only one axis on the one end?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, the headstock was just fixed at the one point. And this is the tailstock, I mean the headstock, and the tailstock is what I moved.
Okay.
And I moved them about 7 millimeters. The bottom was 10 millimeters, and then these are 6 to 7 millimeters off, you know, from the center point, from one point to the next. And then quite a while ago, I did this one. This is just kind of a natural end. I was kind of playing around doing, thinking about making a wand, and this is what came out.
Very Brâncuși.
Yeah,
that-
yeah, I just,
Parallel, because I can see that you turned a long bead on one axis and a long cove on the other. I think it might have been parallel axes, but I can't tell for sure. What do you think?
I'll tell you, I did this like probably at least 2 years ago, and
Very good.
I don't remember how I did it. And
Very nice.
at the time, I wasn't really taking notes. I do
Yeah.
now. But anyway, this was I really like this because yeah, it does have the Brâncuși effect, and I like the natural bottom. This was I was playing around with just kind of branches, and this is what came out.
Comments or questions for John?
Very good. Let me just say that if we can go to 10:30 doing this, or we can go longer, it depends on what you want to do. But
Well,
let's keep going.
Let's go through the dudes and then we'll see where we go from there. Brian
Okay.
Maguire.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. So I learned to do this from a gentleman at our Bucks Woodturners who's a member and did a demonstration. This is definitely circular type with parallel axes, but the demonstration was done with an Axminster jig that you can buy to hold the base so that you can create little cups at the ends. And that way you only really have to turn, hold one end, and because you wouldn't be able to turn this cup and then still turn the ends unless you found a way to fill that. But, thanks, John. I do have a question for Barbara. Barbara at one point talked about the early in the presentation about the sizing of wood and shapes of the wood. And my question would be, what if I wanted to have an area where there was actually no wood along the original center line? I mean, if you follow this piece, you can imagine that there is at least some wood at the center all the way up and down. But if you wanted to create a larger area here, but only have nothing but a void at the center line, say at this spot,
Yeah.
could you start with a bigger lobe when you cut the blank, or maybe turn it down to that and still be successful, you think?
I do, as long, see, I never use the chuck. I always turn between centers, and I use a small 4-prong drive center in the headstock, which really bites the wood. So I can
Right.
successfully turn something like that without putting a lot of pressure on. And you can, here's an example of that same idea with having no wood at all between the axes and being able to turn big voids. So it is possible.
Or
Take
could-
sharp tools
Hold-
and holding
Hold
the
that
wood.
up again, Barbara. Hold that up again. He was spotlight, and I finally got rid of the spotlight. So.
Yeah, Barbara, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's possible. It's tricky. And I think I have a slide in my presentation about how that happened. So, yeah. Okay,
All right.
next.
Okay, let me get back to a gallery view so I can see them all. Hang on a second here. David Hudgel.
Hello, Barbara. I had the
Hi.
pleasure of visiting you, supported by the AAW several years ago.
Yes, hello.
Taught me a lot. Good to see you. Now that's my multi-axis bowl, Barbara. This one is about 13 inches in diameter and about 5 inches deep. The picture from the side didn't show the angles very well. I did this in a twisted format at 120 degrees. And
Nice.
it was fun, and I learned a lot, and I have good ways of keeping the piece on the lathe as I'm turning it.
That's great. I like to see, I haven't done a whole lot of old faceplate turning, just a little bit, but I think that's a great piece. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, remove the spotlight from there. Let me just go back to my view for a second. Bruce.
It's been a few years since we talked you into doing a demo for us in Baltimore, which started me in the quest of how do you do a multi-axis finial. And since I'm a little twisted anyway, I figured that was the way to go. Let's see. So this was kind of my earlier effort.
Oh, yeah. That's
And
very nice.
I had a lot of fun with that, and I was a little concerned though how thin I could go on a finial and still survive when I did that one, and I've kind of evolved that a bit. Unfortunately, I think I have to shut this off to get the other slide. So let's stop that and then share the newer one. Here we go.
Love that. Good.
Wow, that's great.
Beautiful piece.
Yeah, that one, I think I got the top of it right, and then unfortunately, as I found to do it this way requires a lot of sanding. But otherwise, it felt pretty right. But I still haven't found one that I think is perfect. I'm still playing with what I think is the right design. And in this case, I think the pieces in the middle just are out of proportion for the rest of the piece. So getting that right, I think, is something I still need to work on. But I have had a lot of fun with this, and I think it's still going to evolve.
And Bruce, I'm still searching for the perfect form.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, what chisel did you use to turn that?
I used Barbara's suggestion, which is usually a half-inch bowl gouge for most everything, but I'm sure as I got down, then I switched to my spindle gouge to get in between some of these pieces.
Oh, I use a 1/2-inch spindle gouge for that kind of work. Yeah, yeah.
The finial's pretty thin though. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm sure I went between a 1/2-inch bowl gouge and a 3/8 inch spindle gouge.
Is that
Bruce?
ebony?
It is ebony. And
Wow,
that nice straight ebony grain seems to hold up to that kind of abuse pretty well.
good.
Bruce, was that held in a chuck or turned between centers?
That is in a chuck so that you can change the axis. You just rotate it in the chuck every 120 degrees to your offset. So you can only hold the finial at one end anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, now let me just say one other thing. I'd love to see everybody else's work, and we're going to run out of time for my rest of my PowerPoint presentation. So you're either going to have to invite me back or we're going to have to do these others briefly. It's your choice.
So let's do
So-
the others and see where it goes, and then we'll start on the PowerPoint. But
Okay.
yeah,
All
the
right.
deal, yeah, everybody wants to show you their work and hear from it, and we set them up for it, and we challenged them to do it. So
Yep.
let's take them seriously. Max Kackstetter, you're next.
Okay, quickly, I was tasked to make a rotating trophy for our euchre club. And so this is out of a branch of black cherry. And it's turned in 3 parts. The spindle was turned separate. And it survived several years, different club members dropping it and so forth. But I was inspired by your work.
Well, good. Thank you. Is that circular type twisted axes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's another quadrant 4 piece. Yeah, that's really nice.
Okay, thank you.
Henriksen, are you there? We got you. We got
Okay,
you.
well, I got interested in turning multi-axis through Barbara's work. Initially, this was a split turning 2-axis, but I got distracted with going in other directions. Most of my multi-axis turning has been more influenced by Derek Weidman, who you have in the gallery of your book.
Yes.
Seeing him demonstrate was a mind-bending experience, but perhaps equally influential in your book was I had never heard of Luc Deroux
Yeah.
before, and that sent me off into
Wow.
these sorts of explorations. All the cutting is done on the lathe.
Now those are multi-axis as well.
Yeah, they're multi-axis, but they're at least 3 mutually perpendicular axes.
That's a whole new universe to what Barbara's been exploring, really.
Yeah, it is. I got distracted by Derek Weidman and Spindle's cut loss.
Good boy.
Those
Good
are
boy.
good. Thank you.
I'm going to get I'm going to give a, let me see. I'm going to suggest, Barbara, I won't be on next week because I'll be traveling. So we can go, I would suggest you come back next week with your slideshow and let's give these guys the space they need to show their work and talk about it.
Sure. That's
And then
fine
you-
with me. Okay.
And then you and Bowman and Ziegler can do the slideshow next week and have the full hour for that.
Great.
Does that work for you? Yeah?
That does.
Okay, so Henriksen, any more you want to say about that?
No,
Okay, I'm going to take the spotlight off you and I'm going to put it on Malcolm.
Hey, can you hear me, John?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I went to the practical side, practical functional side, actually, with tool handles, which are turned on 3 axis parallel. It's a concept that David Ellsworth, it was the first place that I saw it. I'm just going to try and, the light's not that great, whether you can see it there. You
We can see
sort of
that.
see
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
the 3 sides coming out. This has completely changed the way I hold a tool now. With it's sort of like a hammer handle. You never see a hammer with a round handle. Almost, well, all my bull gouge handles now are done on these 3 axes, which I showed you the end, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's extremely comfortable. You don't need to apply as much grip. Like I found myself with round handles that I'm really hanging on to them, whereas these, they fit in your hand, they register in your hand, super comfortable. And as I say, I've changed almost all my tools over to this sort of thing.
So what does that do for you? Does that help you know which way the tool's oriented by how it feels in your hand?
Well, it's more comfortable in your hand. You have a better grip. but you don't need to apply as tight a grip. So my hands don't fatigue as much as they used to. The attachment point, of course, is another issue for some people. That's a machined aluminum segment, which is not done on any axis, but it's and then a copper ring.
You make those?
Which, yes, I happen to have a machine lathe as well. So, but yeah, and as I say, almost all my handles. See, that shows a little bit better.
That's a good view. Yeah.
Almost all my handles are different because I hang my tools vertically. I don't like them with the point up, so I hang them with the point down, and each one I can look at the handle and know what tool it is. And that's about all there is. I won't take up more time.
Barbara,
That's a great application for multi-axis work, by the way. That's very good. I've done that with some of my tools. I would like to say David learned that from me, but I would be lying.
Yeah, I'd like to say he learned it from me, but I'd be lying. But no, it's if anybody out there who wants to try. Well, if you want to get into a bit of both, it's a really comfortable concept for a tool handle.
And to John's question, it does. You naturally have a direction of the tool. You're not even aware of that anymore. How much that handle feel tells you how your tool is positioned as well. So you don't have to guess. You just pick it up and you know exactly where you are, as far as the orientation of your tool with your.
You guys are winning me over. I'm going to have to try it.
Well, yeah, and it's if you have it so you. Like I like my tools to be able to be removed. They're just so much easier to sharpen, and there's just so many benefits to being able to remove the tool. But you can orient the tool in the handle if you're really fussy about where your flats are. Then you can, as I say, you can orient the steel. But it's not quite as simple. It's not a simple tool handle. It's more of a complex handle once you start adding these inserts.
Have you other work as well, or are you going to stay with that?
I do other stuff, but I'm not going to take up any more time. I'll leave it for somebody else.
All right.
Thank you.
Malcolm, I like the idea that you appear to not have used 120 degrees all the way around that one handle. It looks like it appears that you didn't use it evenly.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, because yeah, one side on the one handle has a longer flat on it, well, longer flat arc, which gives you another option if you want a certain tool, a certain direction, a certain orientation on it just gives you another option. But yeah, good observation.
All right. I thought maybe that was just bozoism, but it sounds like it was intentional.
Well, I've probably got 15 handles like this right now, maybe more. So each one is an adventure to seek the right diameter, the right length of the arc. It keeps changing, and there's just so many options. It's fortunately I have the wood, I have the machinery, and I guess I have the ability to mess with this stuff. The whole thing is just an experimental journey, really.
Thanks very much. I'm going to go to Kai now. Kai, what do you have? Looking at you.
Okay. I've got some spinning tops to show and just share with you.
Kai's coming to us from Germany.
Okay, here they are.
There we go.
Ah.
So they are turned actually on two axes. The top and the bottom of the spinning top are turned on the center axis, and then the three sides with these, they are turned off center about half an inch off center, 13 millimeters, and then I rotated these by 120 degrees to get the three sides, and with this one, the four-sided one, it's kind of rotated by 90 degrees, so you get the outside shape of the spinning top. And they work really nice when you take care to get everything kind of symmetrical so that the weight is distributed evenly and the sides have all the same lengths and things like that. But it's a nice variation on the bowl theme that we saw earlier on. They were done in a similar fashion, I guess.
You got a video showing them spinning?
Yes, I have. I can dig it up. I stop my share now. I dig up the video to where I can show them spinning, and you can go on meanwhile, okay?
Okay, I'm going to go to Dieter. Dieter is not a regular with us, but a new friend here. I think we've talked to him before, though. What do you have, Dieter? You're muted.
Yes, I have turned on my micro.
Yeah.
I'm watching from Germany as well as Kai, but he is an English teacher. And for me, the English language is much more difficult. I'm not used to speak English, but I'll try my best. And I'll show you something quite different from the previous ones. And I change my camera. And here they are. These are my birds. I call them in German Stimmungsvögel. In English, that's something like mood birds. They can show happiness. Oh, I'm quite happy. Oh, I'm so sad today. And I show you these birds because they have been turned on 2 or 3 axes. I have the body of and the back. This is, as you can see, turned by another axis, and the foot where I can see it.
Very nice. Very
And
nice.
down here, that's a third axis between the two others, because if I make the bottom on the center axis of the body, it looks too stiff. And if I use the axis I have used for the back, the bird may fall down easily. It's not so stable standing. But the most interesting for me are not the 3 axes, but the mood of the birds. They are movable in the body, the heads, and so they can show happiness or sadness.
I think that's very clever. That's very clever.
That's my contribution to the session.
They're very nice, yes.
Very
Which
clever.
way do they point when they're hungry?
I saw Peter Wren come on here today. Peter, have you got some stuff you want to show us?
How's that?
Good.
There you go.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Barbara.
Have you got some work you can show?
I just wanted to ask Barbara if she's managed to turn a twist of 180 degrees yet.
Peter and I have back in probably 10 years ago, and Charlie Belden in Canada and California had emails going back and forth about that twist. And no, I haven't, and you can't. And you proved it.
Well, when you were up here, we were asking the question of ourselves, and we figured out if you went 179 degrees, the piece would stay together, but 180 degrees, it would fly apart. So we didn't
Right.
have to prove it.
That's right. It's good to see you, Peter.
Here's I turned this a long time ago. I just like this fellow. Can you see it very well?
Yes, we see it very well, Peter.
It's got what? I'd have to examine it. It's got twists at each end, different. I guess it
Yeah.
goes counterclockwise at one end and clockwise at the other. That's all I can say about that.
That's
But I
amazing.
can say something. Hold it up, Peter, hold that up again. So I
Yeah.
like Peter's work because he used fatter pieces of wood and he used twisted axes, and it's arc type. And on one axis, he'd make a long surface, and on the other one, he'd make a shorter surface. And his work was always very unusual, and I loved it a lot. I think you're in my book, actually.
Yeah, and I have a set of 3 hemispheres that Peter turned many years ago as well.
Yep, yep. Very nice. What did you call those?
Oh,
The name.
these don't have a name.
Oh, I thought they did. Okay.
This is the only one I've turned like this, I think. I could go back to this and stop going on to other things, but I enjoy that one. The other pair I have are a pair of
Those are gorgeous.
people,
Those are gorgeous.
black and gold. I just like them as people.
That's
Yeah.
the vein that Mark Spheri's working in. Mark Spheri said, you know, if on a lathe, everything's going to come out round, and 99% of the time, and he didn't like that, versus a potter's wheel where you really have to work to make it come out round. And his exhibitions at the Museum for Art and Wood in Philadelphia right now are of off-center work, and it's just brilliant shows. So anybody who can get in there to see those should do that. It's related to what you're doing there.
It's great fun. One can explore a lot too. This is a turned on 2 axes. I like the look. I like the look of this guy. And there are all kinds of things you can do with those profiles. But I also wanted to hollow it. But long ago, I figured out how to get this profile in here. I stuck a big piece of wood through here so I could turn it on that axis. But it left a hole in the bottom, so it wouldn't contain anything. So just recently, I figured out how I can make that kind of piece, but leave the bottom so it'll hold peanuts and things. And I could describe that for you. What's the secret?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not going to reveal that. Here it is.
He used the tenor. Yeah.
Here it is. It's 2 axes. There's one to turn this form. Yeah. And then in order to hold it in the chuck, this angle here, this angle here has to be 30 degrees. Sorry, this angle here has to be about 30 degrees and or less. And then you can grab it, you can grab this thing in a chuck and then hollow it from here. Is that clear?
Good. Yes.
Very clever.
Yes. Clever.
And it turns out this is spinning around, so you can whack this off if you're not careful, but you have quite a bit of room in here to turn this shape almost any way you want.
Yeah.
Very clever.
So this is my prototype. I just turned this. I just worked this out the other day. It took me 2 days to figure out what the hell was going on, but this worked out, and I'm going to explore that now because you can imagine the possibilities. This profile can be whatever you like, and this profile can be whatever you like, and I have no idea where it's going.
I love it.
Hey,
That's
Peter,
great.
your last one, I thought it was a napkin ring at first.
Pardon me?
I thought it was a napkin ring.
The last
Oh.
one.
The other one, the black one with the hole in it.
Oh, yeah. You like the hole?
Yeah, we can use that. It's a napkin ring
Oh, I see. Oh, yes.
or a tablecloth ring.
Oh,
There you go. Or yeah, or there it is. That's what it is. It's a looking glass.
I never like when things turn out to be useful.
You're the opposite from me. I like them to be useful. Tim Slifer, what do you have today? We're looking at you, Tim.
There we go. I have a couple things. A tree that's iridescent paint. I think this is Mike Peace's design that he put out on the internet maybe in November, December. So that's a parallel turned. But then along the practical, if nobody's ever turned off center, I would strongly suggest you take some of Barbara's pictures and just grab some scrap wood. You see I've numbered the ends the way she describes it, and just practice before you do anything. And this end led me, if I can share screen, led me, do you see a shared screen?
Not there yet.
No.
Click the blue box. We should have practiced with you beforehand, Fred.
Well, here, I'll just explain it to you very simply. I had a 4 by 8 foot door I made for my shop on a sliding rail. And if you look at this part here, I didn't want to put just a regular old metal handle on it. So I actually took a 12-inch long piece of wood, and this is the handle. I flattened this off a little so I could attach it to the door, and I have this very nice wooden handle on my door now using off-centered turning.
Very nice. Yes.
Very nice indeed. Barry Price, you had your hand up here? Barry,
my stuff is more pedestrian, but we got a 3-axis weed pot or multi-center weed pot.
That's pretty nice, Barry. You could call it pedestrian if you want. I call it pretty nice.
And then earlier I made a cherry 4-sided.
Very nice. Yes.
Very nice indeed. Is that it from you?
That's it.
All right, I'm gonna let Kai show his slide. Or his okay, Kai, what do you got?
Yes, I've got the video. Just give me a second to share it. Okay, that should be it. And I'll just play a little bit of it because I think I showed it before.
Not this multi-axis one we didn't see before.
Wow, they spin.
They
That's
spin
great.
beautifully. I didn't think they were going to spin so nicely. I was wondering how you were going to pull this off. Wonderful.
So Kai, I have a challenge for you now. Try and make one of those as a tower top.
Let them hit each other. I want to see how they kick each other out there like
They're
my
going to blast
grandson
each
played
other.
with Beyblades. They're like Beyblades that the kids play with. They're not going to hit each other.
It's a video, John.
There they go.
I'll stop it here.
Oh, that's a great, a great last share, Barbara. It's okay. We're going to put the spotlight back on you, and
Okay.
And we got you. And
Okay, well, I have some parting comments, and that is, what we've seen today is a lot of really nice work, some of which is based on a systematic way to think about it, and some not. Some people can just find ideas randomly and make really nice work. Those of us who need a structure and a way to understand this work, that's what my contribution is to this area of turning. I really love seeing everybody's work. I haven't seen Peter Rand in years, so it was great to see him. I visited him years ago in Canada. But anyhow, it's great to be a part of your group, and thank you. And I'll see you next week, and I'll run over the way I got into this and the way my work progressed through the years.
All right, we'll give you the full hour next week to show slides. If Bowman and Ziegler will be moderators, I'll be in an airplane. I'm going to go to Florida for 3 or 4 weeks and get out of the cold.
Don't come down here for warm. It's cold.
Well, maybe by next week it'll be warm. And there's Duxbury. Hello, Duxbury.
Hi, how you doing? We're down here doing demos and workshops with it. Anyway, it's freezing down here.
You have any work you want to shoot? We got a minute here. You got something you want to hold up?
No, I've got it all packed in the truck.
Okay. Well, maybe next week you can come on and, but Barbara's got a full slideshow. I know that for sure.
Great to see Barbara. You're the guru of gurus.
Barbara, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for persuading us to do this hour. And I'm really impressed with our group here, the number of people that brought work to show. And I know there's more work out there that didn't come on the screen today. You know, people are pretty good at yeah, nice group. Thank you all so very, very much. And thank you, Barbara, so very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you all. See a lot of friends out there.
Thank you very much.
We had 62 on screen at the peak today.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara.
Bye-bye. Next week, more,
Thank you, Barbara.
John.
more multi-center next week.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.